Oh, hello everybody. Hello, hello. Am I on? Is this thing on? Hello? Let's do that. Hi, this is the advice stream. Welcome back. It's been a few weeks. I'm your host, Jeremy International. The advice stream is the live show where we talk about all kinds of stuff. Sometimes we play video games, tonight we're not. Sometimes we have guests, tonight we're not. And we hang out. And if you have advice, then you ask me, your old pal, what's my name? Jeremy International, and I bet I could help you out. We are live on Facebook and Twitch and YouTube, and if you're there, come on by and say hi. Hey, Eichel. Eichel's the first commenter over on Twitch. Oi, 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 Eichel says, you know what that means, Eichel? First commenter of the show means you get a Jeremy International t-shirt. There's no Jeremy International t-shirts. I don't have one to give you. I shouldn't have said that. But let me tell you, Eichel, if someday we make Jeremy International t-shirts, you're gonna get one. Guaranteed. That's a guarantee. If then. It's been a while. Life is crazy. Hey, it's Start Rec. Start Rec says, can it be Jeremy International a wet t-shirt? I mean, I guess. I don't think the wet t-shirt concept works for someone with my particular body type, but I don't judge people. I'm here. Jeremy International is all about the kids. I'm here to bring you what you want to see. I probably should have grabbed another beer while I was down. Tonight's stream is unofficially brought to you by Spaten, the beer named after a shovel. And wow, people are trickling in. Hello, everybody. Why don't you, if you're have joined the advice stream previously, why don't you go ahead and pop a hi into the chat there, just so that I can say hi back, because I missed doing this. Life. Here's a piece of advice: life gets crazy, and sometimes you got to take a step back, and you have to take care of yourself. Not in a sexual way, and I needed a little bit of time off. Life is hectic. I have a new job that's stressful in a good way, working hard but having fun. And we have a kid who had to go back, who started school today, and that's the whole thing. And it's the whole thing. Hickman838, hello, hello. I'm also streaming on YouTube. Hickman, are you streaming on YouTube right now? Are we streaming? Would that create feedback? Am I on your stream? Are you streaming me on YouTube? You can do that if you want to. I'm open source, fair use, and etc. So if you, I mean, I'm already on YouTube, but if you want to stream this again on YouTube under your screen, at least at the moment, I'm gonna go ahead and say that is permissible. In the future, it may not be. I might have to send you a C&D, but not right now. So that's cool. Hickman, what are you streaming? Are you currently streaming as we speak IRL on YouTube? And if so, what is it that you are streaming there? Another fault, while I'm waiting for Hickman to answer, another sometimes participant of the show, Afrobot, is on Twitch right now streaming a wonderful video game called Control that I played, I guess maybe like a year ago, and still think about it often because it's a really intense, scary, but so well made and beautiful video game that he's streaming that now. Hickman834 says, well, LOL, playing you on both here and YouTube because the kitchen TV doesn't have Twitch. That's cool. What do you stream over there on the tubes, Hickman? If you don't mind my asking, I'm just curious. We do video games often on the advice stream as well. We did like a 4-week stream of Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, and I got bored with that game, and I was playing it. So it's a great game. It definitely deserves all of the acclaim that it has. If you don't follow video games, this is like an acclaim. This is like in the canon of video games, people say. But I don't know. It was a little prickly for me at that particular stage in my life. On the video game front, I have, since we last streamed, I have completed Pikmin 4 on the Switch, which is a great game. I love all those Pikmin games. And if you haven't played one and you got a Switch handy, try it out. I think all four of them are available on the Switch, and they're great. And since I'd completed that, I picked back up Metroid 2 on the Game Boy, playing it on my analog pocket and having a jolly good time. Hopefully, I'll finish that and then move on to whatever is the next chronological Metroid game. Hickman says, streaming you, I try to avoid the other side of the camera. You know, this is a little insider information about me. I have a real problem with not being the center of attention. I'm the youngest of a big family. And so, you know, I like this side of the camera. It's not a good look always for me, especially when it's not like my show, as it were. And I have this instinct to make it that way, and it's obnoxious and unkind sometimes to the people whose turn it actually is. So I trying to demure a little bit more, if that makes sense. But yeah, so as a reminder to everyone, if you'd like to seek advice from Jeremy International, you can head on over to JeremyInternational.com. There's a contact form there where you can send me questions. I'll read them out loud, totally anonymously, and do my best to help you out. My credentials for giving advice: first off, I'm middle-aged, I'm old, and I've been around. I've lived a life, and I've survived things, some of which of my own making and some of which weren't, like we all do. So I've got some lessons under my belt. I got some city miles under the dashboard. Is that a thing people say? And I probably can help you out. I'm not a doctor. I'm obligated to tell you that I'm not a doctor, but I've been a patient a lot, so I can certainly provide like the type of medical advice that like you need as a patient, not like, oh yeah, you need to get that lanced or whatever, but I can tell you, like, this is what your doctor's saying to you. You shouldn't like that doctor. Go find another doctor. This is how you find another doctor. I can help you with those kinds of things. What else can I do? I can help you with technical support. You got a computer that's not running as good as it should. We can try to troubleshoot that together if you want to. And what else can I do? Relationship advice. I'm a pretty good cook. I think I can cook okay. I can help you put together a menu if you're going to have like company over for dinner or something. Glug, glug, glug. So yeah, so shoot me over a message. Feel free, if you want to just throw it in the chat, you can. But if you'd like to keep it anonymous and unanimous, then head on over to JeremyInternational.com and you can send me a message there. There's also the ability there to leave a tip if you want to. No one ever has, and that's fine. I'm not doing this for the money, although if someone would pay me to do this, I certainly would. But yeah, so here's my thoughts for tonight. I am losing people on the stream. I was started off strong. Here's my plan for this evening. As you can see on the screen over here, I have a database of my record collection. And I was going to work on that a little bit. I have a stack of records over here, and I was going to bring out a record one at a time and kind of talk about it a little bit and why it's special to me, why it's important to me, why I decided to pay whatever ridiculous amount of money I paid for that particular record. And I'll enter it into the database while I'm busy, like a rainy day project I've been meaning to do. But then when you have a kid, your rainy day projects become entertaining your kid. So I'm way behind. I don't buy a lot of records anymore because I think my collection's pretty good. There's a couple I'd like to add in. I actually bought like the first record I bought in months the other day. When that comes in the mail, whenever that happens, we can talk about it. But that's what I was planning on doing for the evening. And if you first off, if you see a record I'm bringing up and you have an opinion about it, please let me know whether it's good or bad. There's no such thing as a wrong opinion. If I think that there's a piece of music that is wonderful and really special to me, and you think it's garbage, that's cool, man. That's like your opinion or whatever. And while normally I would say I don't care about your opinion, today I do, because I want to have a conversation, because we're doing a show, and I'd like to hear what other people's perspectives are on things that are important to me. Also, if there's if you want to talk about a particularly important or meaningful music from your life I think many of us, maybe not everyone, but probably everyone, has some kind of musical experience in their life. You know, that like a song, you know, can change your life. It can save your life. It can make you feel something that you never thought you could feel. It can change your perspective. Music is powerful. I think that's a factor of being a human being. We invented it, and it means a lot to us. And it can have really big emotional and psychological impacts. If you have a story, it doesn't even have to be advice related, but if you have a story about a meaningful musical experience, I'd love to hear it. Feel free to throw that into the chat as well. But this is, now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm going to go ahead and say this is going to be a show of me working on a database that, I don't know, that doesn't sound very entertaining to anybody. But you know what? This is what we're doing. You go to war with the army you got. Donald Rumsfeld said that. And so this is what we're doing tonight, for better for worse. I'm going to work on a database. And I hope that you watch and participate in my experiences here and our discussions about music. But I'd love to hear really meaningful, let's say transformational, I think that's the word to go for. I would love to hear your stories about a transformational musical experience. I think those are really great stories. It's a really good way to get to know people. Hey, Fred Undead's joined the stream as well. Hi, Fred Undead. Welcome back to the stream. Maybe we'll slowly regain the people that we lost in the first 5 minutes because of my dynamic introductions. Okay, so let's see where we are. So the stack I brought is mostly gonna be like rock or like indie rock, college rock, however term kids use these days. And can I get this box to go away, please? Yeah. I think mostly like from the 90s. Fred Undead says, Garbage 2.0 was extremely transformational for me. And remind me, Fred Undead, was that Garbage's first album, was it? Because that album was also a massive big deal for me when it came out. I don't know necessarily if there was a lot that was like particularly innovative about Garbage's first album, but I certainly had never heard anything like it at the time. I saw second album. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. I saw Garbage open for the Smashing Pumpkins in probably like 1997 or so. That was a long time ago, but man, that was a good show. So the first album I have to introduce into my database, I'm just kind of looking through here, is Together by the New Pornographers. This is a great album. And it's like you can sing along to it, and all the songs are really great. I don't know if I have a lot specifically to say about the New Pornographers, but I don't even know how I first heard of this album, but I heard of it somehow. So let's put that in. Name of the album is Together. And the artist is the New Pornographers. If you remember, I'm not good at spelling. And, you know, I have other columns here. I don't know how sharply you guys can see that. I have other columns here for the label and the release date and all of that stuff, catalog numbers. I'll get back to that later. I'm just kind of trying to get a record here of what I got. In case I decide to start buying records again, you know, it's nice to have a little spreadsheet on my phone so I remember what I got and what I don't got. Startrek says, Grouper, the man who died in his boat. I was just listening to Mass Romantic this week. Man, Startrek, I don't know either of those. What kind of music would you say that is? What does that type of music have a genre? Let me know. Mass Romantic and Grouper. Interesting. Next up, We got Wolfgang Amadeus by Phoenix. This album, this is one of those albums. This is a little tricky because a couple of the songs on this, at least, were very heavily played all over the place, and were in like the Apple Store, and probably were on TV commercials and stuff. And sometimes that makes that hard to hear an album later because what was I gonna say? It kind of changes its context, right? Because then you hear it and you think you're hearing a commercial, or you're in the Apple Store or something, and you just want to listen to music and have feelings. I don't always, it's hard sometimes to continue to have like an emotional connection to a song that's so pervasive and so overly played. I had a weird experience the other day because whatever, I was listening to some playlist and the algorithm brought up "I'm Coming Out" by Diana Ross, and that song, is heavily sampled, and I think they did like a Burger King commercial or something with that song. So, but I hadn't heard it in a long time as a song, and I kind of was able to get into a place like I never heard it before. I was able to kind of hear it like with fresh ears, And man, that song is good. That song's amazing, but it takes you a little bit of work to get there when something is so ridiculously overly played. And then we have Grizzly Bear. This is the Vectametist or whatever. I don't know how to pronounce this album. This was a Vinyl Me Please exclusive. I like this album a lot. This is a good album. I don't listen to. I think maybe I probably spun this record once or twice since I got it, and that might be a good reason for me to think about maybe not having it anymore, because my record collection is getting a little. What's the word I'm looking for? A little heavy. I do have a lot of records, and if I got rid of some, then I guess I could not feel bad about buying some more. So maybe that's a record I'll think about like putting up on eBay or something. But Start Rec, what kind of music is? Oh, Master Romantic, yeah, is a new. I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about an album. Master Romantic is a New Pornographers album. Yeah, the New Pornographers are great. And Grouper is hard to describe, but very mellow. I like mellow. I like mellow a lot. I should check it out. Grouper, like the fish. St. Vincent, Daddy's Home. Also, like, there's nothing wrong with this album. I think I've listened to it once. So I might also decide to not keep that one. That's the tricky thing with having a collection, is you see something, you get a good deal on it, and you want to get it, and then you get it, and then you get it home, and you're like, oh, well, this is just another record that I have, and it's not, like up to necessarily what I want to have, like to listen to it regularly to make it worthwhile to have it like take up space in my house. Start Rec says Grouper is kind of ambient and echoey. The lyrics are inscrutable. It reminds me of our friend Margot, but less energetic. Interesting. Start Rec is talking about a mutual friend of ours, Margot McDonald, who's a wonderful musician, makes really terrific music. You can find her on all of the places you look for music and videos and stuff. She's on YouTube. She's in Apple Music. I'm sure she's in Spotify. Margot McDonald. All right. Well, Star Rec, all you got to say is it sounds like Margot McDonald, and I'm into it. I was in New York a few months ago, and was lucky enough to get to see our friend Margot McDonald play music live for the first time since before the pandemic, probably. And man, I had an emotional reaction to her music. I was in a room full of people. It was a performance, and I cried because her music is so beautiful and it means so much to me, and I'm sure to you too. At least I can see two people in the chat here that have experienced a lot of the wonderful magical times um, when we've heard Margot play live music before. So yeah, that was a wonderful time. Margot does not have any of her music on vinyl. If she did, then I would have it, and we would be talking about that right now. There's nothing, as a record collector, there's nothing more exciting to me than when a friend of mine has new music out and they put it on vinyl. This is so this next album isn't one I bought for myself. I believe I bought this for my wife. I think this was like it was a record store day exclusive. And it is, and you will know us by the Trail of Our Dead. And this album is The Century of Self. I actually don't know this album really well. I think maybe I've heard it once overall together. But she's a fan, so I got this for her, and I'm going to ... and you will know us by the Trail of and it is Century the Century of Self. We not so much as we used to, but we used to pretty regularly, at least once a week, have sit on the sofa and put our phones down and listen to records together. We don't do that much anymore, but we should. We should do that again. That was a fun way to spend an evening. This is a classic and probably an essential on most people's lists. Interpol, Turn on the Bright Lights. If you're from the early 2000s, this was a big deal for many people. And I think that it still is. Oh, I have some of these already in my database, but that's okay. I'm going to keep going. What else have I got to lose? Moving down the list, I have this one too. This is a band called Quilt. I don't know if I've talked to a lot of other people that know Quilt. This is a self-titled album. Super good. It's kind of like a little bit of kind of like Jefferson Airplane-y a little bit, but then like a little folkier at times. Also really hard to describe. But this album's super good. They're on any of your streaming services if you want to check them out. Quilt by Quilt. Already in my list, so I'm not going to type that in. And then we have one of my wife's favorite albums of all time, Queens of the Stone Age, Songs for the Deaf. Such a good album. So hard, so good. And is this in my database, or do I need to enter it? I need to enter it. So let's do that. If you like Queens of the Stone Age, then you probably like this album because it's their big one. In a minute, we're going to switch gears, and I do have some advice-related questions that I have accumulated. It hasn't been a little while since we've done a stream, but it is what it is. And then, also, if you're from the early 2000s, 13 Tales of Urban Bohemia by the Dandy Warhols. This album was huge. I saw them play this album live many times. This one and their previous album, whose name escapes me at the moment. So good if you like kind of that early 2000s / late 90s kind of sound. They had a big single off of this. Also, another one of those songs that was kind of overplayed everywhere for a long time. Bohemian Like You was kind of everywhere for a minute. I feel like the Dandy Warhols were really good at making that work, at like making a album that everybody likes and then taking one song and like selling the hell out of it. But you know, that's showbiz, baby. All right, and then going down the list. Another album that was everywhere for a minute, Silent Alarm by Block Party. Also, an album I don't really listen to. It's not a bad album by any means. It's a great album, but it's not one that I feel like I listen to a lot. I listen to that Dandy Warhol's album pretty regularly because that's so good. But I'm not sure I listen to this Block Party album very often. This actually might even just belong to my wife, partner, person. And let's take a break and let's see if we can find an advice related question. I feel like I'm kind of talking to myself, but you know, we do what we do. Let's see what we got here. Okay, here's one. This person says, I have an etiquette question about public bathrooms. I was recently waiting in line for the women's restroom at a busy airport. All of the stalls were occupied except for the larger accessible stall at the very end. The woman in front of me insisted on not using that stall, given that she did not need the extra accessibility it provided. Once another stall opened up and it was my turn in line, I and another able-bodied person faced a dilemma. Use the stall and somehow look insensitive, or wait for another stall and hold up the growing line. I think it's important to note that there was no one in a wheelchair or any other visible disability in line. I went ahead and used the accessible stall because using it quickly and moving the line along didn't seem to hurt anyone. Was I wrong to do so? Real quick, Hickman834 says, my SO asks what video switcher you use. So all that I use for a stream like this is Switcher Studio, which is an application. It's a subscription service that I get for free for complicated reasons I'm not going to get into. But that's all that I use. When I play a video game, I'll import video from whatever console I'm streaming from through Elgato, whatever their thing is. The Elgato video streaming software. I have an adapter and everything. But if I'm not streaming, then that's literally all that I use is Switcher Studio. Switcher Studio is super great. It's very easy to use. They have some subscription levels that aren't a tremendous amount of money. I'm multi-streaming. I use their higher-end streaming service, but if you're live streaming, whether you're doing video games or something else, you can't beat Switcher Studio for ease of use and reliability, I'd say. There are definitely cheaper ways to go, but not easier ways to go. And to be honest, if I had to pay for the level of subscription I'm using for this, I probably would have to find some other solution. But for reasons, nothing bad, not really. I don't have to pay for it. Okay, so going back to our question, to paraphrase, the person writing in said that she was waiting in line at a public restroom at a big airport, so it was busy. And there was the accessibility, the handicap stall at the end. And the woman waiting in front of her wouldn't use it. It was empty. And the woman in front of her insisted on not using it and waiting till one of the non-accessibility stalls freed up. And then when the letter writer became the first person in line, she used the accessibility stall and bing, bang, boom, did her business and went about her life. And she's asking if that was the wrong thing to do. I think that's an interesting topic. I think there's a lot of different ways to tackle that. I would personally say, no, I don't think that was the wrong thing to do. If there was a person that had a clear visible disability, and maybe that changes things a little bit, but you got to remember that not all disabilities are easily discernible from you looking at someone from, the outside of their body. There's lots of different ways people can be disabled, and you might not notice from just looking at them. And that accessibility stall, whether you see someone with an obvious disability or not, they should get first priority for that. But the way to give them first priority for that is to keep the line. If someone came up and said, "Hey, I need the accessibility stall," of course you let them go first. But if they don't, then you just keep the line moving as quick as you can. Don't take your time. That's good advice in general for public restrooms. You keep it moving. Don't sit around. Don't look at your phone. Don't take your phone out in the bathroom in general. Definitely don't do it in a public restroom. And keep it moving. That's really the best way you could support a person that maybe isn't visibly has a disability. If you got a different take on that, please let me know. Eichel says, never take your time. Yeah. Whatever, the public bathroom isn't a time to have private space and recoup from your day. That's what your bathroom in your house is for. You need to keep it going. And so as long as you keep the line moving and you make that stall available to the next person as quickly as you can, I think that's good, right? Starrick says, fair enough, but I'm never going to stop pooping and doom scrolling at the same time. Starrick, I can't imagine that's good for your mental or physical health to doom scroll and poop simultaneously, but I don't know. And let's be honest, we all look at our phones in the bathroom. When I said don't take out your phone in the bathroom, I mean you shouldn't, but we all do, of course. Yeah, I would be curious if anyone else has a different take on that. I guess the follow-up question is, well, what about a handicap or an accessible parking spot in a parking lot? And I feel like that's different. It's definitely different, because if a otherwise able-bodied person took that spot, then we'd all think that they were not a nice person. But how is it different is the question. How is it different? It is. I guess it's partly because you're not in line. So you taking that spot isn't necessarily going to make the same spot available for someone else sooner. That's one way that it's different. It's different. It is. I guess it's because, a parking lot is ultimately a zero-sum game too, right? There's a finite number of spots, and once they're all taken, then that's it. But that finite number tends to be much larger and tends to, be pretty consistently turning over as people come and go, in a way that a restroom has a much more smaller number of available seats at any given time. So it's better for everyone if everything keeps moving, right? Is that why it's different? It's different. Moral philosopher should help us figure out why. I think that's one main reason why, though. It's just the number of people that can be serviced in a specific period of time is a big reason why it's different. Yeah, that's what I'm going with. Using a accessibility stall in a public restroom when you don't need it is okay, but using an accessibility parking spot in a parking lot is not. We all know that, but I'm not sure that I'm able to articulate why. Let me know if anyone out there wants to help me figure that out, because it is different in some capacity. So that was one question that I saw. Because I haven't gone live in so long, I don't really have any questions that have come into the website for a while, so I've taken these from various places on the internet. And I have a few more that I thought would be interesting to go over. And we will get to those as time goes by. Whew. Oh my gosh, we're only a half an hour into the stream. And that's wild. I feel like I've been doing this all night long. Let's keep going. This is a really terrific record. This is Rat-a-tat. I don't know if you've heard Rat-a-tat. Also, this is like early 2000s. Rat-a-tat's like all instrumental. Guitars with like lots and lots of effects on them. And they're so good. And I saw them. I want to say probably it would have been somewhere, 2010 at the latest. When did this album come out? 2004. So probably, like 2006, 2007. And they just let anyone come up on stage and start dancing with them. So the stage was full of people, and they're playing this song that's just like a real banger, and everyone's dancing their faces off. And then someone like tripped over a cable, and the music stopped. And so they plugged it in, they figured it all out, and then they just started the song from the beginning again and let everyone stay on stage again. And man, that was a good show. And that was at the 930 Club in Washington, D.C. And it couldn't have been, maybe 2006. I got this record, actually, now that I'm remembering this, I got this record at the Amoeba record store in San Francisco, and somehow got it all the way back to the East Coast, and it's in perfect shape. I haven't played it in a while, but man, it's a good record. It cost me $11.98. Rat-a-tat. Classic. Okay, let me sit these down, and we're gonna keep going. I got a lot going on my desk today. Yeah. Is there man, what's the best live performance you've ever seen? I gotta think about that for a minute. The best live musical performance that you've ever seen. While you're thinking about it, I'm gonna think about it too. This is kind of cheesy, but a few years ago, U2 went on tour, and they just played the Joshua Tree, which is like their fourth album, came out in the 80s, and such a good album. And we can say not great things about U2 later stuff all day long, but that is a special record. And I went with my brother and sister, and it was, at some giant stadium, and there was like a million people there. And I don't go to shows like that. I go to shows in much smaller venues usually. And but man, that was a show. That was a show and a half for sure. It was a good time. That was one of the best live performances I've seen. I saw. Man, I don't know. I've seen lots of good performances, I guess. Can't think of anything else off the top of my head right now. Let's go through our records and see what else we find. Slater Kinney, The Center Won't Hold. This is one of their later records, I think. Isn't it? I'm going to write that down. That's a good one. Anybody else want to share? Maybe, it doesn't have to be like the best, but like a particularly amazing live performance you ever saw. One time I saw Dio and the Scorpions and Deep Purple all in one show. That was amazing. This is getting a little warped. Also, if you're from the early 2000s, this is It by The Strokes. This is, this was like the Frampton Comes Alive for the early 2000s. There's nothing bad you can say about this album. It's great all the way through. Everybody, I think, in their cousin has it, or at least had it on CD when that was a thing people did. I'm putting that in the wrong field. Did I ever see The Strokes? I'm sure that I did. Where would I and when would I have seen them? Starrick says, most recently, the Shins' 20th anniversary Inverted World Tour. Almost 1,000 people singing the words together. That's amazing. Yeah, those are those types of experiences, You can't beat that. That's real. That's magical to have a shared experience, in the same place with that many people. That's real nice. Um, I what's the show I saw where people sang together a lot? I used to go see this band a long time ago called the Mooney Suzuki. They had a lot of songs that were like really like easily singy, and people that would go to see them usually go see them a lot. So they'd have like little like rituals and like places where people would clap. It was kind of like going to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show, you know. That if you're going for your first time, you needed somebody to kind of walk you through it so you knew what you were supposed to do and when. And that was kind of a fun that was a fun experience. So then this is the Strokes' second album, Room on Fire. Also great, probably not as all pervasive as their previous one, but also really good record from those days. I do want to be clear to say that I've got albums in my collection that are not from the early 2000s, but that's just the chunk of records that I grabbed for today. It's all from the early 2000s or from later in the 2000s, like this Twin Peaks album, which is much more recent. Does this have a year? When did this come out? This is a good album. I think this was a purchase of my wife's. I think she's a big fan, but we listen to this record a lot, and I like it a lot. I don't see a year on that. Starrick says, which was touching as it often is. Yeah, when everybody's singing together, you know, like that's the thing. I think that's really an important part of the human experience is kind of these shared experiences as you know as a human being, these things that we do together in big groups, and we haven't gotten a lot of that in the last several years because of the pandemic. And you know, at least in my personal life and then in other ways that life changes, it's been, you know, harder to go out and do those types of things these days. But it's so important, at least maybe not for everybody, but for lots of people to do that, because it is an essential part of being a person. This is an album that I also love very much. It took me a long time to find this on vinyl. This is Yuck. This is also like much more recent. I feel like this has probably come out in the last 10 years, maybe. Let's see if we can find a year on this. This is their self-titled album. And Yuck has like a really great, like kind of Seattle 90s sound to it. Even though they're more recent, 2010. Love this album, and it's another album that I listen to super regularly. This album gets heavy rotation in our house. If you haven't heard this, you should. Yuck by Yuck. So the next album here, this is a DC band called The Sea Life. They used to play with us a lot when I had a live show, and this is also a really good album. Hard to describe. Kind of like heavy at times, like you're gonna, like there's some kind of like approaching, kind of like screamy vocals, but not in like too heavy of a way. And then sometimes it's super chill and fun. I bet you that they're on most streaming services too, if you want to look them up. But this is super good, super good album. Oh yeah, and then we got Grimes. This is also a good album. I think this was another one of my wife's picks, but we also, this is at least at times been pretty heavy rotation in our house. Grimes. Visions. And hold on, we're getting to a stopping point here in a minute, and then we'll do some more questions. Man, I want to listen to this album right now. It's so good. This is one, maybe this was a record store day also. This is kind of like a compilation. It's one side's Memphis and the other side's Mississippi, and it's just kind of like instrumental, kind of like just like kind of cool like music you want to have in the background at a party where you can kind of like bob your head and kind of dance to it a little bit, but you can still talk to people. It's called Just Legging It. It's a compilation. There's a lot of acts on here, almost none of which I ever heard of before I got it. It's all instrumental, and it's a blast. It's a good time. Hey, too many men's shave past. Hi, welcome to the stream. I knew bringing up that Grimes album was going to bring up a conversation about Elon Musk. Starrex says she broke my heart when she got with Elon. That's true, and every time we play that album, we have to have a conversation about how she's a class traitor. But it's still a good album, and you know sometimes you got to separate the artist from the art. And I'm not going to stop listening to that record. So too many men's have passed. Oh, too many men's have passed, not too many men shave past. Too many men's have passed. I agree with that one. Too many men's. Too many men says if Elon Musk were a butch lesbian, she'd be in my pants right now. Just saying. I don't know what that means, but good for you. Too many men's. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I have nothing to say about that. Starrex says sentences that have never been said before, and Too Many Men has a happy face. Too Many Men says I just made a Twitch and it took too long to think of a username. That's I like it. I like Too Many Men's. It also reminds me of what's the name of the witch in The Sword in the Stone? Isn't her name Min? Something like that. But yeah, anyway, so this is 19 party instrumentals for grown-ups. Just leg it, and it's a good time. I was gonna say it's a bunch of different artists on there. It's a compilation, and I don't know most of them, but I'm gonna add that into my little database too, because that is definitely one I'm going to keep, and it's a good time for when you have a little get together with some grown-ups at your house. Just leg it. 2, 3 exclamation points. Welcome to the stream, Too Many Mins. If I haven't said, we've had some people trickling in and out. Might as well remind everybody. This is the advice stream. I'm your host, Jeremy International. We're live on Twitch. We're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. Today, we are talking about records. I just have a stack of records from my record collection, and I'm putting them into a database, which seems, now that I say it out loud, like a terrible idea for a live stream. But it's a chore I've been meaning to do for a while, and I decided to make time to do it tonight while I was streaming for some reason. But if you would like to seek advice from me, your host, Jeremy International, you can head on over to JeremyInternational.com. There's a contact form there, and I will read your question out loud anonymously. I've made that mistake once before, and I won't do it again. But if you'd also like to just submit a question in the chat, feel free to do that too. In fact, I think StartRec just did one. StartRec says, advice question. Hi, I'm a lesbian looking for a moronic billionaire whose pants I would like to get into. Who should I choose, and how should I do it? Yeah, that sums it up right there, StartRec. That's the vibe of the chat at the moment. But do you think that if Elon was a butch lesbian, she would be less moronic, right? Because that's the whole problem with Elon, is he's been rich his whole life and he doesn't consider what it's like to not be. And he thinks people that aren't rich like him are like that because they're lazy or stupid or something. But I feel like having the perspective maybe of being a member of an oppressed group of people, like a butch lesbian would be in the United States right now, maybe would give such a person some insight that would make them less moronic and terrible. Although now that I say that out loud, you can look at someone like Ellen DeGeneres, who also apparently is terrible. I didn't know that until recently. So who knows? But perspective means things sometimes. And people, that have a different perspective sometimes have maybe a little bit more room for empathy, but then sometimes not. Having said all of that, Starrick said he did not expect me to answer that actually. Starrick, it's been a little while since I got an advice question from an audience member because I've been off the air for so long that I saw it and I decided to take it. Too Many Men says there really aren't enough lesbian billionaires to go around. I think that there's too many billionaires in general. There shouldn't really be any. But if we are going to have some, then I would like to see a diverse collection of billionaires. I'd like to see some representation and some diversity and inclusion in those billionaires. But ideally, we just, wouldn't have any. I feel like, once you get like $100 million, $200 million, I could debate that. $500 million. Once you've accumulated that much wealth, that probably should put you in a tax bracket where it'd get really hard to have any more than that, because that seems like a whole lot of money. And, all the rest of us here are drowning in debt and dying from preventable diseases because we can't afford healthcare. And so, I would say ideally no billionaires, but if we're going to have them, yes, I would like to see more really LGBTQ plus billionaires. If we're going to have billionaires, we might as well have a diverse group of billionaires, I say. But maybe no billionaires is the ideal outcome there. Oh boy. All right, let's go through another question. This is a long one, but what are we gonna do? We haven't even been doing this for an hour yet. Here we go. It's not too long. My boyfriend's parents don't like me, even though we haven't met. Even though they haven't met me yet, and my boyfriend won't stick up for me. This is already, I have thoughts. I met him at my college campus event this summer before school starts. We hit it off really well, and he told me he liked me when we continued to text regularly for a few weeks after. The feeling is mutual, and we've since been in a long-distance relationship until we're in a regular relationship when we're in college together next month. However, apparently, he has helicopter parents, and his mom just seems straight up toxic. It's weird because he's 19 and I'm almost 19, and they're so overprotective of him. They don't think we're in a real relationship because we're long distance. He's not sending me a birthday present because his parents will question him mailing something to me. And before I had a serious conversation about this, he didn't want to call me because his parents would give him a hard time about it. He was telling me about a female friend our age who's getting married, which we both think is weird. And I was saying that her now fiance probably wanted to get married so he could lock her down so she doesn't sleep with anyone else. He told me that his mom said the same thing about me. She said that was probably my intention in being in a relationship with him so soon. Sure, we did sort of rush into things. What is rushing into? You're not even, what? And it's not the ideal way to start a relationship, but we're happy, for the most part, except for his parents. He thinks his parents are overbearing too, but he won't stick up for me. I really don't want to break up with him because we're going to be in college together next month, and it just seems like a huge red flag to me. Other than this, he's literally perfect for me. Yeah, Fred Undead, I'd say the same thing. Drama is too much. You're 18 years old. You don't need this kind of strife in your dating life. There's enough challenges you're going to come about from dating age-appropriate men because 19-year-old male-style people are usually have the emotional maturity of like a 9-year-old. So just don't do it. Break up with him. This isn't worth it. It's an awful lot to ask a 19-year-old who's just starting college to stand up to his parents, although that would be the right thing for him to do. You don't need any of this. You don't need it. Don't do it. It's not worth it. That's it. That's all I got. It's not not a thing you need to be dealing with at 19. I would advise for you to not really be serious about anybody at 19. Have fun in college, learn whatever it is you think you're there to learn about and do your best. And, get start to get situated in your life. You don't need anybody, especially a person that isn't able to have an independent life from their parents to weigh you down. You don't need it. Oh, should that be my catchphrase? I should have a catchphrase for the advice stream. I think that's my catchphrase. You don't need it. What do you think? I put that on a t-shirt. You guys think I should put that on a t-shirt? You don't need it. Fred Undead says, go bang a lot of mistakes. Yeah, I mean, I feel weird telling a 19 or almost 19-year-old, a just 18-year-old person to go sleep around, but really, that's what you should do. That's what college is for. Be safe, use protection, be honest emotionally with yourself and with your partners, and then besides that, go at it. Get an IUD. That's a good idea, but still use condoms if you're gonna have sex with penis havers. And the most important thing is educate yourself and be honest with yourself and with your partners about what you want and what you're about. And then go to town is normally what I would tell people in college. Don't have a baby with anybody. There's plenty of time for that in the future. And you don't need to have to take care of a baby when you're only 19 years old. So do whatever is necessary to avoid having a baby with somebody. And that includes not moving to a state where they have stripped your bodily autonomy rights away from you. Don't go there. Don't go to college there. Don't visit there. Don't buy products from companies that are based there. Just don't. And don't do it. And you'll be fine. Yes. Too many mins. Be safe and get an IUD. Please get an IUD and don't have. Well, I was talking about this the other day. People get pregnant by mistake, and I understand that. And they choose to keep the baby, and I respect that. I respect their choice to keep it or not to keep it. But when people plan to have a kid, be real careful about who you're having a kid with. Because, getting divorced or breaking up is easy, but not when, but separating your life from someone that you've had a child with is not. So, sleep with who you want to sleep with. Don't really, really, really think it through before you have a baby with somebody. And I know that's not relevant to this person's question, but I hear so many people going through such a hard time because they chose to have a kid with the wrong person. And don't do it. Don't do it, is what I'm trying to say. Be really mindful. You don't have to be really mindful about who you sleep with, although you probably should. But be really mindful about who you have a baby with. And at least in parts of the United States, you still get to have that choice. Okay, well, that was my stack of records. We've got so many people now. I should keep going. We should do something else. What else should we do? Should I read another question? Does anyone out there need advice? I have more questions that I can read. Maybe that's what we should do. But where did I go? Let's see. Oh, here's one that I think is interesting too, because I'm not sure I have a strong answer for this one, and it's short. So I'm going to read another one right now. My wife and I have an 18-month-old daughter, 18 months, and we have been arguing about piercing her ears, which I oppose. I even said that if you make her get a piercing, I will pay for a tattoo for her. Let me read that again. I even said that if you make her get a piercing, I will pay for a tattoo for her. I feel if we get her ears pierced, it would only be to satisfy ourselves, as she hasn't asked for that because she's 18 months. I would rather wait until she's old enough to want to do it herself. Am I being unreasonable? First off, getting your ears pierced and getting a tattoo are not the same thing, because your ears will heal up, and those holes don't stay there forever. You take your earrings out and they go away. And tattoos generally are far more permanent, although truly permanent, no. So let's not compare the two. Um, the context here is, some cultures piercing even very young children's ears is uh, a really big deal. And if your wife is from that culture, I think you need to respect your culture. Ultimately, in the end, this is not a permanent body modification. And children, especially very, very young children, don't necessarily have a say in what types of traditions they are engaged in a million ways. Like when you baptize a little baby, they're not making a decision to do that. You're doing that to them, and so I think that like baptism, this is ultimately a meaningless um, tradition that doesn't. I'm not meaningless. Obviously, baptism has a huge meaning, but it's ultimately low stakes tradition. It's a brief thing. It's one and done. You're done, and then you move on. And I don't. I would love to hear other people's take on this, but from my perspective, I don't think this is a huge deal. And while certainly I think one can argue of waiting till the kid's old enough to make a decision is certainly a valid argument to have. If this is an important part of your wife's culture, I think you need to respect that. And it is not the same as getting a tattoo, right? Um, Start Rec says, "Sick circ, bro. Where'd you get it?" I mean, that's, I guess the context here is Start Rec is talking about, I'm assuming, male circumcision, which is something that a lot of cultures do, the culture I was brought up in, without talking to your kid about it. That is a much more permanent thing than getting your ears pierced for sure. But there's lots of things like that um, that are really important to people's cultures, and I think it's absolutely a valid standpoint to say no. Let's wait till the kid is old enough to make a decision. But piercing ears is not permanent. Um, does it hurt? Not any more than like getting a vaccine, which I'm sure your 18-month-old kid better have a bunch of by now. So I guess it just depends on how willing you are to fight with your wife about this, and how important to your wife's culture, if she does come from a culture that traditionally pierces young children's ears, is. But and it's just the ear piercing. Starrek says, "Love you, man. Just teasing like usual." I understand, Starrek. No, I don't know if this is the venue for that, but I agree with a lot of the things that people say about circumcision is complicated, and 8-day-old babies don't get to consent to that, and it is a permanent alteration to someone's body. So I understand why people have a hard time with it, but I also understand why people do it. So it is life's complicated. There's few things I think that are clearly bad and wrong all the time. And there's lots of things that are bad and wrong a lot of the time, maybe even most of the time. Um, but yeah, so to wrap that one up, there's not a lot of information in here about how important it is to your wife's culture, but there are cultures where this is very important and it's not permanent. So comparing it to a tattoo is not a valid argument. No one is gonna tattoo a 18-month-old baby. Well, maybe that's really important in some cultures too. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Oh boy, this is the advice stream. I'm Jeremy International. We're live on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook. And let's go around the horn and see if we got people on any of those other places. Maybe we'll slowly regain the people that we lost. Are we on? Does anyone following us on Facebook? No, never. No one's ever on Facebook. Why do I do it? Is anyone following us on YouTube? Couple people over on YouTube. Hey, YouTubers, please say hi. I've asked to say hi a bunch of times, and you guys are just kind of creeping in the back. That's creepy. And then, we got a couple people over on Twitch. I understand, I took like a month off from doing this, and I think I lost a few of my regulars. I lost a little bit of momentum, but I will get it back. And we've got new participants, like Too Many Men's, that hath joined us over here. If you'd like to seek advice from me, your friend Jeremy International, then you can head on. You can throw it in the chat if you just want it next to your name. But if you want to keep it anonymous, you can head on over to JeremyInternational.com and shoot me. There's a contact form there when I will read your question out loud anonymously and we can discuss. Too Many Men says, I think it's a safe bet to not pierce their skin, re baby piercing. I think the safe bet is to not pierce their skin, re baby ear piercing. Yeah, we have a young child. She's older than 18 months. We didn't pierce her ears. We still haven't. We don't have any plans on doing that anytime soon. That's not something that's particularly important to the culture I was brought up in or the culture that my partner was brought up in. So it's not something that we've considered. But if it's something that's really important to your culture, I say, you need to make a decision based on how important it is to your culture or to your partner's culture. Too Many Men's is saying, because what if they get infected? That's a problem. But 18-month-old kids are usually getting bathed pretty regularly. I agree that they're kind of germ and grossness magnets, but I don't think it'd be too difficult to keep the ear piercing clean until it heals in that particular case. And remember, they're getting shots, sometimes like 4 or 5 shots per doctor's visit at that age. So, but I don't like that idea. I think that it's not something I would choose to do, but it doesn't matter to me. And it's not part of my culture. It's not part of my partner's culture. So it's easy for us to say no. But, if you had your ears pierced when you were 18 months old, and your mom and your grandmother and your great-grandmother and your great-great-grandmother and your great-great-great-grandmother and all your sisters and your cousins and your aunts and everybody had their ears pierced when they were a little baby, it's a lot harder to say no to that. It's a lot harder to take that kind of thing out of that kind of context, I guess is what I'm saying. So is there a little bit of risk involved? Sure. Is your baby probably going to cry and be not great for a day or so afterwards just because it hurts? Probably. But there's lots of things that we do to 18-month-old kids against their will that hurt. But it's for their own benefit, and having deep connected ties to your culture and your ancestors is very beneficial. I would say. So, yeah. Now, we've been talking about this for like 15 minutes now, but I'll say, if this guy's wife she doesn't come from a culture that values piercing your ears when you're really little and never did it before, but, just thinks that it'll be cute, then, that's the reason to put your foot down a little bit more. Fred Undead says, if it's ingrained, it's not so easy to dismiss. Yeah, the past is prologue, right? That's one of the truest things anyone can say. And the cultures of our ancestors are very difficult for a lot of people, at least, to let go of. I'm certainly one of those. That tradition means something, and it's valuable in a lot of ways. And we need to be careful about what we accept that can be detrimental or hurtful or harmful to ourselves or people in our communities, especially our children. But this isn't, is this harmful? Sure, it's harmful in that you're piercing a baby's ears and they're going to cry. But ultimately, is it going to have lasting negative consequences? No. But comparing pierced ears to getting a tattoo is is pretty dumb. Too Many Men says it's also feeding into the pressure of society beauty. Yeah, no, I agree with that too. Also feeding into the pressure of societal beauty standards from an extremely young age. That's the main reason that I don't like the idea for me and for my kid is this idea of like societal beauty standards, and that people that are girls are supposed to look this way and people that are boys are supposed to look that way, and they have to be that way, and there's no in between, and there's no switching, and there's no either or. That's one of those traditions that is in fact harmful to ourselves and our children and people in our community. And that's the reason why I don't love it. But at the same time, when this little girl gets older, if she decides that she doesn't want to be a she, if she decides that she doesn't want to embrace these types of cultural beauty expectations, she can take her whatever, her little diamond studs out or whatever you're going to put in that kid's ears, and they'll heal up real quick. And then she can go about living her life the way that she wants to when she's older. This is not a permanent or an unchangeable alteration. And but I mean, Too Many Men says so many good points there, because these are really, as a person, I grew up in a very traditional type of culture, and my partner did in a very different but also traditional type of culture. And finding the things that are meaningful that you want to keep, and finding the things that you think are harmful and not great that you want to throw away is hard. But it's a thing that any reasonable person living in the magical world of the future we find ourselves in has to decide, especially when they have kids. You don't have to. It's not all or nothing. You don't have to do everything that your parents did or your grandparents did. But making those decisions is not easy. And weighing your the cost benefit of this. I think this one's ultimately pretty low stakes. Yeah, boy, we talked about that one extensively. But Too Many Mints has a lot of good insight in there, and those societal beauty standards can be harmful for sure. Hickman says, as someone held together by scars, I disagree that they aren't permanent. I feel all mine, even my old ear piercing. Oh, that's interesting. Hickman, yeah. To be honest, I've never I've never had pierced ears before. I just always assumed, and I had heard that they close up, but I guess they don't go away forever. And I'll tell you, Hickman, I'm also a person that's held together by scars, of varying kinds, and so the marks on our body that stay with us forever, that we don't choose, that are things that happen to us, are hard to reconcile with, because they last forever, and they're permanent reminders of times when you didn't have control, and times when bad things happened. So I get it. I get it, my friend. And that's certainly true. It keeps going back to me about how important into your wife's culture is this. And if it's something that's really, really important, and that it's something that they've done forever, it's a hard decision to make. There's not an easy answer there, for sure. Oh boy, what a doozy! I wasn't expecting that one to be so emotional for me, but it was. And that's what emotions are. Is sometimes they're inconvenient. I would say most of the time they are. That's why Vulcans don't do feelings, because they're so inconvenient for them. They go through a process of purging emotions from themselves. Um, uh, and sometimes that seems nice, but most of the time it doesn't. Let's not purge ourselves from emotions. Your emotions are yours. You should feel them. You have a right to feel them. Maybe you even have an obligation to feel your emotions. Okay, so here I've done those stack of records that I have. You guys want to see? Here's the genres that I've created for myself. And genres for music are tricky. Genres for anything are tricky, because they don't always one person's genre doesn't always work for another person's collection. I think that's another good question to talk about when, at least I set out tonight planning on talking about music and not physical trauma as it relates to traditions, to cultural traditions. But let's see if we can get back on track and talk about music. Um, like there's some genres that are really obvious. Like I don't know. This is all probably too small for most people to see, but like I've got like a country section. I don't have a lot of country music. I don't listen to a lot of country music, but the country music I listen to, I like. So I have a little country section here. I got a hip hop section. I have a lot more hip hop than what I've entered in here, but still not as much as I like. Jazz and metal, soul. I have a little collection of video game soundtracks that I like to have as well. But those, some of them are easy and some of them aren't. And then you get to this point where you're like, well, this music, like what genre is it? And then you have to start making up your own. And that's kind of I think one of the next projects that I need to work on is kind of coming up with a better categorization, because like I've got like 2000s rock, and I've got like 2010s rock, I've got like 1950s rock, for example, and that isn't super great because it's just a little too broad for me. So that's another thing that's kind of hard to figure out, is how do you categorize things that don't easily fit into categories. Metal's metal, everybody knows that. But what else? Like there's like I have a soul section, but then like I have like a disco section, and then I have like a funk section, but some albums aren't really obviously one or the other. And I don't know if I am expert enough to decide which album goes into which. So I feel like I need bigger, broader categories. I don't know. Do you, if you don't have a vinyl collection or like a CD collection, almost no one does these days, but with like the music you stream, do you feel like you would need to create a new or a specific to you genre of music if you had to like catalog your musical taste? I think that's a good question. Like I could certainly just have a category that says soundtracks, but I, for whatever reason, want to have video game soundtracks different from film and television soundtracks. Uh, what about you, audience at home? Do you have a musical taste that's like broad or confusing enough that you think that you would have to come up with new categories for it? Eichel says, are genres of music important? I listen to some of the songs I've cherry picked from the ether, and I've never really paid any attention to. Eichel, generally speaking, I don't think that they are. Because a genre is a category and music is a creative endeavor, and creative endeavors don't always fit into categories. I have real, like, practical, concrete needs in that I have a bunch of records that when I'm looking for a specific record, I want to be able to find it in a hurry. And alphabetical order by artist seems boring to me, and then also a pain when it's time to put something back. So I would prefer to I'm forcing categories onto a thing that's not easily categorized, just for practical like librarian purposes, if that makes sense. Starreg says, I don't know if I need to make a new genre or category, but I definitely think sharing playlists is a good way to get to know someone. That's true, Starreg. I like sharing playlists with people. That's maybe a good point for me to remind everybody that I have a blog at JeremyInternational.com where I shared, I think, one or two playlists over there, and I'm planning on sharing more. While you're over there, JeremyInternational.com, check out my blog. I write not often, but I write some things there. It's important to note that I'm writing whether anyone's reading it or not. I don't care that you don't care, is my saying for my blog. But I'm doing it anyways, and if you happen to be over there, have a look. Eichel says my music collection isn't very large. That's a tricky thing because I think that a lot of people, I'm certainly one of them, kind of has like a need to categorize things, even when they don't fit into categories, and most things don't. But just for ease, if you have a digital collection where you can open up a device and push in a couple letters and get what you want, that's fine. But I have slightly different needs for this particular body of data. Um, yeah, but I honestly am kind of bored with thinking of the genre problem, so I'll probably just stick with what I have. What's fun though is when you mix two people's collections together, like when you move in with someone or you get married or whatever, and kind of figuring out like what new categories arise from this unexpected combination of things. Um, uh, yeah. My video game soundtrack's pretty good though, because I have the soundtrack on vinyl from the original Castlevania game, which is such a good soundtrack. And also A Link to the Past, my favorite video game of all time. Ooh, boy. All right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do one more question, and I think we're going to wrap it up a little early because I got an early day tomorrow. Well, let's look at one of these and see which one I should do. Sorry, hold on a second. Okay. Okay. Here we go. One last question for the night. My maternal grandmother has been given 4 weeks to live. My mother is not incredibly close with her because my grandmother is fairly toxic. My mom, however, is a sweetheart and has a we're always there for family mentality. My grandma was not very nice to me, especially when things got difficult for me. None of my mom's siblings have been particularly supportive of me, and to all it seemed to all be spearheaded by my grandma. Last Thanksgiving, she said some truly hurtful things, and I really haven't been able to forgive her. I am just done with her. The problem is, I know I will be expected to go to her funeral and all the associated activities. I don't want to, but even more importantly, I have some major deadlines coming up for some applications that will help me live out a major dream of mine. That deadline is right after the timeline in which my grandma has to live. I do not want to risk my dream to go to my mean old grandma's funeral. I know this will upset my mom. Should I go out of respect or try to get out of it? I mean, this one's pretty obvious to me. Funerals aren't for the person that's dead because they're dead. They're for the people that are still around. And however much your grandmother was a terrible person to you and your mom, for her own very admirable reasons, I think, um, is still invested in that relationship, and your mom will have a hard time there. I would say, and I don't know this from firsthand experience, but I know people who were not close to their parents that when their parents passed away had a really hard time. So to me, it seems obvious the only thing to do is to go to their funeral. Not for your grandmother, she won't be there, she'll be dead, but for your mom, who is likely gonna need your support. I would imagine you got 4 weeks. So maybe you can hunker down and get all the application stuff done now. You're in a fortunate situation in that you know at least approximately when someone's going to die. Usually you don't know those things. So you got some time to get ready for it. And I don't know what you're applying for or what that process is, but I can't imagine it's something that's so time sensitive that you can't take You don't, the person isn't saying how far they'd have to travel or what would be involved time wise or money wise for them to get to the funeral. But the funeral isn't for the person that died. They don't matter anymore. It's for the people that are alive. And I bet you that it would be really helpful and meaningful to your mom, if you were there. If you want to, you can, I don't know, stick up your middle finger to the pile of dirt when everybody leaves if you really want to stick it to your grandma for being horrible to you. But Too Many Men says, I want my funeral to be like the funeral in Love Actually. I saw Love Actually. I feel like I've seen it once or twice. I don't remember the funeral. And that you should explain, if you can, in a couple sentences, Too Many Men's, what's so great about it. I know that for my funeral, I want there to be a 7-day long live music festival that they turn into a concert movie called Jeremy's Rock and Roll Shiva. And I'm going to be, if there is an afterlife and that doesn't happen for me, I'll be really sad about it. Everyone close to me knows that that's what I want, and I hope that they're planning for it now, because you never know. Yeah, I can't imagine that there's literally no way that you can make going to the funeral happen and apply for whatever this is that you want to apply for. There's got to be a way to make those two things work, and I think you really have to go. It's the right thing to do. To go to be there for your mom. Screw your grandma. No one likes her anyways, but your mom will need you to be there. Eichel says, my dad wants a rager for his funeral, LOL. Fred Undead says, it's true, yeah, that if you've ever seen, there's this really great concert documentary from the 70s called Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus. And it's just like it's like a circus, and they've got John Lennon's there, and The Who play a bunch of songs, and Taj Mahal and everybody. And it's a really great album, and it's a great movie. And I want that, but not a circus. I want it to be Shiva. Too Many Men says, I just want Liam Neeson and that little British kid to be present. Star Trek says, the Irish tradition of the wake is really great. Yeah, I've been to a couple of wakes before, and I don't like looking at the dead body, but I understand why that's meaningful to people. My culture doesn't do that. We don't look at them. But I understand why people would want to. In my culture, when someone dies, that the house of a close friend kind of becomes like the community center, and the people who were family members of the deceased person can't prepare food for themselves, and they need the tradition is set so they need a lot of help, so everyone has to come out and help them. And then their house just becomes kind of like a place where everyone goes, and you are together for long periods of time, and you inevitably start talking about the deceased person, and you share stories, and it's a healing process for sure. Start Rex says that my folks did it for my grandpa. I'm assuming you're talking about the wake. Oh, well, they didn't do that. It was just a party. I like the idea of a party. But, I don't know. I want people to be sad a little bit, right? Anyways, all right. I think that's going to do us for tonight, everybody. I will be back next week, hopefully with guests. I know I've been talking about getting guests back on the show again for a while. That obviously takes some planning and some logistics, and I just haven't had that in me for a little while. But hopefully I'll be getting back to it. Life is hard, and sometimes you gotta step back. But I'm back, and I'm planning on being back for quite a while, and we'll see how it goes. Probably not going to do any games for a little bit, but hopefully we'll have some guests next time. So we'll see you guys next week. And this has been the Advice Stream. I'm your host, Jeremy International. Have a great night. Take care of yourselves. And sometimes it's okay to take a step back. Sometimes it's okay to just quit, for a little while at least. And I will see you next time.